All right, so good morning again. Just to get the official record good, right? So I have mentioned that last week we had started looking at the moral, legal, and financial, and we'll be continuing with the legal part of it today, right? And so we had looked at section 2 already, and we are going to finish off the rest of this section, right? So section 3, I wouldn't bother write it. Actually, it's on the slide here, so it's the same thing, right? It doesn't make sense to write something that's already written. So section 3 is the duty of the employer to non-employees. There's a general duty to ensure the health, safety, and welfare. Well, health, safety, and welfare of non-employees, so far as is reasonably practicable. There are specific duties for health and safety for non-employees. The employer must provide instruction and information as necessary. Self-employed persons must give non-employees information affecting their health and safety. So I mean it's just one slide, but it really does have more to this. But again, like I said, the more doesn't really come. The idea here is that the employer have a duty to non-employees, and non-employees um would include like visitors, contractors, customers, clients, auditors. And the idea here is that in all companies, then the employer have a duty to those non-employees, just as they would have to their employees, right? So they have to take care of non-employees, take care of an auditor, take care of a contractor, take care of a visitor, right? They need to give them information, possibly like where are the safe areas to walk in the company. Uh, in the event of a fire, what do they do? Where is the cafe? Where is the washrooms? Whatever have you, right? So there's a lot more behind this, but there are no questions on section 3, right? So we just have one in the book too. When you get your book, it's just like one. It's just like 3 lines anyway, right? Which is what we put back on the slide. The same thing in the book is the same thing on the slide. So if you look at it here or there, it's really the same information that you're looking at anyway. All right. Section 4 is the duty of persons in control of premises. Those persons are to ensure that the workplace is safe and without risk to health. Um, the duty of persons in control of premises must ensure safe access and egress, safe plant and substances. Again, one slide. So just to explain this one. So the duty of persons in control of premises is in reference here to um like landowners or building owners, right? When they say the person in control of premises, if you look at the little clip here, it's like a building owner that is actually renting out the building. So if you are renting out a facility, you have to ensure that the workplace that you are renting is safe and without risk to health, ensure safe access and egress, ensure safe plant and substances. So it's more like a landlord. It's like the duty that a landlord would have if someone is renting to ensure the place is clean, the place is safe, there is safe parking, whatever have you, right? But again, there are no questions on section 4, right? Section 5 has been repealed. It used to contain things with the environment, but they have their own law for the environment. So section 5 got repealed anyway, right? Section 6, the duty of suppliers, manufacturers of articles and substances, so far as is reasonably practicable, the manufacturer of an article of substance is to ensure that it is safe and without risk to health. Any article, equipment that is installed must be safe when they are set, cleaned, and maintained. Substances must be without risk to health when they are used, handled, stored, or transported. If it's a chemical that's being supplied, that information should be supplied on the safe use of the article and substances, for example, in a material safety data sheet or a chemical safety data sheet. The manufacturer supplier need to guarantee the level of safety by undertaking tests and examination on like a sample piece of equipment before it is put into service or manufactured, right? And a lot of manufacturers will do that. You could think about, um, like the automobile industry or the cell phone industry. They would have had to test their cars with crash tests Some of them non-destructive testing, of course, but a crash test as well. Maybe see if the airbags would inflate. If it's your phone, make sure if the phone, is left plugged in, it doesn't overcharge or heats up and catches a fire. So all manufacturers then have that duty to ensure that whatever they are producing, selling, installing, right, that it is safe, and they produce information on what they are selling, if it's a chemical, if it's a piece of equipment, and that information and the testing of the equipment is to ensure that the equipment is also safe as well, right? Section 7 we did last week, the duty of the employees. This is, of course, the next heavily touched section. Two main duties are to take reasonable care for the health and safety of yourself and that of others who could be affected by your acts or omissions, and to cooperate with the employer to enable them to fulfill their duty anyway, right? Um, I'm gonna just ask once again on the record, those who have the cameras off, you could put it on. Remember, these sessions are recorded and sent to Nibosh. At least I do my part. They have remarked that once I tell you all that I have done my job, right? Remember, you could turn it off and on if you want. It's the first class in the morning, and again, you could just turn it off on and off, but don't leave it off for the whole class. Have it on at the same time, on and off, right? Section 8, the duty of managers, supervisors, employees. It says here, no person is to misuse or interfere with safety provisions. Section 8 is sometimes referred to as the horseplay section. But that could be the common way to remember it, but there have been like one question for 1 mark that could have used section 8, and I'll show you how just now. But it wasn't about horseplay, right? And so I think a lot of people, when they see horseplay, they more or less, identify with that. But it's really about misuse, right? So no person is to misuse or interfere with safety provision. No person is to misuse. So misuse is like if something was faulty and the question paper said that a supervisor said use it anyway, right? So like a drill was faulty or the vehicle maybe had some sort of mishap or misfire, and somewhere in the passage, but then it said, that for the future paper that, the supervisor said use it anyway, and they asked what section is being broken. I'm not too sure if you can see that, but the employer, of course, is breaking section 2 because, the employer have a duty to ensure safe plants and safe systems of work, safe plant and safe equipment, right? But in a way, they are also breaking section 8 because if they are misusing, right, a piece of work equipment, the employer or the supervisor, then the same manager, supervisors, employees, in other words, could be in breach of more than one section. It could be in breach of section 2 and section 8, or you can be in breach of section 7 if you are an employee because you fail to take care of yourself. But then if you are having the supervisor told you to use it, but you're using it because you should not have used unsafe equipment, right? You should have refused to work. But if you're using it in a way, then you are misusing the equipment. So the employees are breaking section 7, but they are also in breach of section 8, based on the fact that they fall under section 7 and 8 as well, right? So you understand see if you understand how it's possible to use section 8 in a question that says what section is being broken, because section 8 mentions managers and employees. It's like the managers could also be in breach of section 8, or the supervisor, right? In addition to section 2. And the employees themselves could be in breach of section 7, but it could also be in breach of section 8 as well. Just see if you understand that a bit. It came like for 1 mark anyway, like one additional mark, right? But again, 1 mark with Nibosh is plenty anyway, right? Remember, every question gets 1 mark anyway, right? So sometimes that difference between 44 and 45 is getting this 1 mark here, right? So see if you understand. So do you understand that employers and employees can be in breach of section 8 as well, in addition to their respective section, being employees is section 7 and employers is section 2. But because 8 is sort of meant for everybody, you see managers, supervisors, employees, and they say no person, it seems to be that the employees and the managers could also be breaking more than one section at the same time anyway. You all okay with that? Yeah, okay, let's move on. Section 9. Section 9 says no employer shall levy or permit to be levied on any employees of his any charge in respect of anything done or provided to comply with specific requirements of statutory provisions. What does that really mean? That really means that if it the first, I mean, this is how it's said in the law, and this is how it's said in Trinidad and Guyana too, right? The same kind of British phrase then, right? No person shall levy or permit to be levied. So what this simply means is that the company, no employer should be charging you then for things like PPE, right? No employer, if you want, you can see it here, it says no charge, right? Shall not levy. But if you want, you can write it back in your own words. It doesn't come for exam as well. These sections are really hardly ever, you know, there for exam. But like I guess in everyday life, then no employer should charge you for they say anything provided, such as PPE. So PPE is kind of understood here. Is like that's what they're talking about, right? PPE and including training. Like if you have been nominated to be the first aider or the fire marshal, but that was a responsibility placed, sort of like by the company on you, then there's no charge for that then, right? And in terms of the OSH Act as well as the HSW Act here, right? So no charge then for PP and training. In fact, they said anything, but I mean, those are the two most common things, right? That I could think about, I suppose there could be other things like water and whatever, like nothing that is provided for you then, right? Like for the employer to comply with their law, you should be charged for. So you should not be charged for your PP. You should not be charged for training once they put you on that responsibility then, right? And I was thinking to welfare facilities, the microwave and the kitchen, you should not have been asked to purchase that. The refrigerator, the drinking water, you shouldn't be asked to contribute towards those things because, those things are basic welfare facilities, right? Other than
So
that, there are no passives anyway. Yeah, go ahead.
what about like parking and whatnot?
Hmm, that's a technical one. I mean, and I mean, like saying that the employer should not charge you for PPE in Trinidad and in Guyana doesn't mean that they won't. It's just that is the law, right? The law says you should not be charged for PPE and training, right? But that doesn't mean that companies don't charge you for it. Some companies do, right? Like OSHA is not everywhere. The HSE in England is not everywhere, and I suppose not everybody reports that because you could be looking for a job, and yes, like you got through with the work and the salary may be good, but the condition is that like they will take all the PPE from your first money, and if you do the training course, they will keep the certificate, right? So there are different things that happen in the region here that is not really what the law wanted, but a lot of companies do it anyway. With respect to parking, if because I'm aware of this, especially like in Port of Spain, if your job requires, I mean that you get a park and then now they are saying that you have to pay for the park, that is also against the OSH Act because that contributes towards like what is called health and safety arrangements. So health and safety arrangements is everything we mentioned here. And if your vehicle being safe, or unless there's some sort of alternative, if the company did provide, let's say like a shuttle service, if that's a facility where they have like a car coming to pick you up in the week or the month when you are being charged for parking, well, that's a bit different. If you refuse the shuttle service, then you have to pay for your parking, right? But things like parking facilities, like to be safe while at work then, right? Not having to worry about your vehicle. That is a basic requirement of the OSHA Act. The problem with it, though, like I said, calling OSHA would mean that your company look at you in a different way, and then OSHA may take a long time to even come to a solution to that. But it's in the OSHA Act, things like welfare arrangements, all of those things then should be provided for you based on your job. Unless if, like I said, the duty is dispensed in another way, like they have a shuttle service and you refuse that, but in that case, fine, the company did provide health and safety arrangements. But if the health and safety arrangements is now you have to pay $40 a day or $60 a day for your own, probably 40 is a bit too much, but I mean, maybe 60 is a bit too much, but $40 a day, $30 a day for your own packet for 5 days a week, that is definitely not what you had signed up for. And it's not like the terms then in terms of the employer not having to charge you, because this is their work that you are doing. You are not going to a park and park up there on your own work then. It's their work. So if it's their work, they should pick up that bill anyway, right? So you can leave it like that. If anybody's in that position, you could probably inform OSHA or something and see what happens. But again, like I said, there's some knockdown, effects of that in Trinidad and maybe knockdown effects in Guyana as well, if you consider, reporting that to the Ministry of Labor. I do think though that the OSHA inspector in both countries may inform the company that they have to put alternative arrangements in place. And so it mightn't be paying the bill of the all employees, but it may be a shorter service or something. And that could be worked out where the workers don't have to worry about a car for that week or that month. But there is a bus that will pass and pick them up. And that a lot of workers may be happy for that. If it's like a unique bus, it's not a public bus, but it's just for like those 25 workers or whatever. I think a lot of workers may actually go for that because of the less stress of driving, back and forth anyway. Right? Anything else, anyone? Okay, we're going on again. Section 36. There are two more sections in the syllabus. Section 36 is the duty of managers, HSE officers, and supervisors. It says here line managers, supervisors, and HSE officers can be held liable for the offense committed by another person, one of their employees, whilst in the course of their employment, right? So, line managers, supervisors, HSE officers can be held liable for the offense committed by another person. So, not too sure if you noticed that. I think you noticed that the manager could get a fine because of like an employee made an accident then, right? It may have been shown that the manager was not supervising or the worker was not trained. So yes, managers, supervisors can be fined under the HSW Act and the respective OSH Act in Trinidad and in Guyana. And in Section 37, they say here, offense by directors, managers, and legal secretaries. This is not the secretary in the office, this is the legal secretary. This is somebody that's high up in the company. Where an offense is committed by a body corporate, senior persons may also be individually liable. Directed minds can therefore be prosecuted as well as body corporate if proof of neglect is possible. It's very rare to prosecute under this section as proof is difficult, but very rare is not rare because they have like 4 in every month in the UK. The last statement is not actually true. 4 persons are, but in a month time, like 4 directors will be prosecuted in the UK. So that's not very rare. I mean, it may be rare compared to the other things that they calculate, like man hours lost, maybe 2 million man hours. So 4 compared to 2 million may be looked at as rare, but it's not rare, right? It's not, and even in Trinidad, here, those of us who have known with the Paria incident, the company would have been charged, the managers would have been charged. And I guess this month here we would see what's the worth of that charge anyway. So it's not very rare at all around the world, but maybe comparing it to other statistics in a 4 compared to 2 to 4 million is maybe rare anyway, right? So that is the end part of the law. There's a little summary here. There's another law there, but we'll pick this up in chapter 3. There's a law called the Management of Health and Safety at Work Regulation 1999. And that law talks about doing a suitable and sufficient risk assessment. We'll pick that up in chapter 3, right? So what we have to do now, we have to go back. So this would have wrapped up the sections of the Act from last week. Section 2, you can look at them, section 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 36, 37. And of all the sections, again, like today though, to me the only, I mean, they had one thing on section 37. They asked like, I guess like, why would a manager be charged under section 37? And it's because they would have not done their part then, right? They would have not done their uh, accountability. They would have not had, management reviews, and they could have gotten that from the case study itself, right? So one there and one here, one mark here, like, could a supervisor be fined under section 8? The answer is yes, and the case study may say what the supervisor did that was incorrect, right? And that would have wrapped up the arc anyway. So just to go back to where we were at, we had looked at moral, legal, and financial. So that would have been the learning outcome. And we had looked at moral last week. We looked at financial, and for the law, we sort of went to the end of the slide there because a summary of the HSW Act is on the end of this slide, right? So we are continuing because the law is not actually finished, right? So that's we have to come back here to 1.2, and we are continuing here, right? Just let me check on the chart. Okay, right, good. All right, let's move on. So if you have any writing paper, we'll have to use some in a bit. I'll write on the slide, of course, right? There's something here for exam as well, but we have to reach it still. So the force of law, punishment, and compensation. They say sources of law. You have two main sources of law in the world. You have statute law and you have common law. Statute law is a law that is made by Parliament. The word state, right? Statute law is a law made by Parliament, and common law is a law made by judges, right? Statute law is a law made by Parliament, and common law is a law made by judges, like Judge Judy. If you all have seen any episodes of Judge Judy, like, yes, that's a kind of law, right? Like whenever two parties come before a judge and the judge, of course, would rule in favor of one of them. So if they say, Frank won the case and the company has to compensate him, the words of the judge then is the law. That is the law. They call that common law, right? So there are two types of laws in the world. You have statute law and common law. Now, today class is not on common law. There is, if you read through the slide, there is a picture of Judge Judy and stuff here. That is next week. Today we're still on statute law, right? Just a disclaimer here, and again, I'll say this next week again. Hopefully, you all take notes so that you realize this is the same that we say. There have been no common law questions, right? So next week class, we'll do common law. We have to do it. Next week, we'll finish chapter 1, I think, right? I believe, or we come close to finishing. No, actually, no, next week we won't finish. We'll finish the other week, right? The reason is that today class is slow, right? So when I say slow, there's something you have to learn today in statute law. So that'll take us some time. It's not to read today then. Today is about learning. It's a difference. There's a difference between reading and doing. Today we have to do something, right? Which is under statute law. So let's try to read out the slides and get to that. And just remember what I said. Today is not common law, but when we do common law next week, there are no questions on it anyway. It's just part of your syllabus, right? Remember I said it's only about 7 or 8 questions you get, and there's a huge syllabus. Ideally, they don't test everything, but they seem to test the same thing. There's like a trend then. And statute law is the trend, right? Let me read. I'm going to read this one and read out all of this. And then I would stop. Today we stop right around here. But then there's something you have to do. So that'll take the time, right? So statute law deals with law made by the state. It is defined as a written law of the land. Statute law can take two forms. It can take the form of an act or a regulation. I'll explain some of this in a bit. An act is known as a statute. A regulation is known as a statutory instrument. If you breach the OSH Act or the HSW Act in the UK, the prosecution, which will be the state is going to prosecute you, like the OSH inspector must prove their case beyond all reasonable doubt. You are a criminal if you commit a crime against the state. The main sanction includes imprisonment and fines. Well, really fines in Trinidad and fines in Guyana. But they do have imprisonment for breaching the Health and Safety Act then, right? The Health and Safety at Work Act in the UK. Offenses could be indictable or summary. An indictable is a serious offense. An indictable offense is like somebody died then, like somebody fell off a scaffold and died, right? That's an indictable. The company will be charged indictably. A summary offense is a less serious offense, right? So the Usher inspector came by, they noticed housekeeping, a machine was making noise. You are being fined, but it's not a hefty fine. Well, it is hefty in the UK, but it mightn't be hefty in the region here, right? In Guyana, it's actually 45,000 Guyanese dollars, which is about 1,200 TT. And in Trinidad, the fine could range from 5,000 to 10,000 TT, right? But what we should write down, even though we haven't reached it yet, we should write down the fine in the UK because remember, this course comes from the UK. So if you want, you could write it down one time. It's not really today's lesson though, but you have like different levels of fines, and you have like summary or less serious offenses. Exactly on the same side if you read it out, you'll see it, right? And you have the serious offenses, right? So like the less serious offenses, if I would just say it, I wouldn't really write too much, right? The less serious offenses in the UK carry a fine of £20,000. That's a lot because remember it's pounds, right? Anybody can estimate how much is that in TT? And about 6 months imprisonment, right? In the UK. So it's a lot of money in the UK. Trinidad and Guyana might not be that much, right? But 6 months imprisonment. And this is for the less serious one. This is for the summary offense. Anybody could say how much is this in TT? How much is £20,000 in TT on average?
200,000.
Right, very good. It's about 200,000 TT dollars. So that's a lot of money. And in Guyanese, it'd be millions. Because it'd be three twos is six, about 6 point something million Guyanese dollars, right? So it's very expensive in the UK then, right? But this is the figure you have to remember. The exam is from the UK, so all your figures, even though we could relate it to the region, we could relate it to Trinidad and we could relate it to Guyana, really, the exam would require that you know the correct figure. It's on the slide. I cannot give myself double work. I should have just kind of scroll along and you'd have seen it, right? And for the serious offenses, the fine is actually an unlimited fine. They say it's actually, it's going to be more than like £100,000, which is more than a million TT. It's an unlimited fine for the serious offenses. Why unlimited? Because the judge has set it, right? So they don't really know how high it could be. Because the judges could set it. But it's going to be more than £20,000 because, £20,000 is the least. So it's more than, so it's more than the £20,000. And imprisonment here is actually 2 years for each breach of the act, for each violation of the act. 2 years imprisonment. Don't know if you understand that too, but we just did it. We just did that, the different sections. So if you are found to be in breach of section 2, that is 2 years imprisonment. And this is for the managers, right? This is not for the normal employees. If they are found to be in breach of section 8, that's another 2 years. If you're found to be, so it's 2 years for each breach. If you're found to be in breach of section 36, that's another 2 years imprisonment. Yes, in the UK, that's tell you how serious it is, right? I know like Trinidad and Guyana, like we don't believe that you can go to jail for a worker dying then. A manager can go to jail for a worker dying. Yes, right? In the UK, that's actually a crime. They actually refer to that as corporate manslaughter. So this is 8 years imprisonment here a manager can go to jail for. And the fine may like the fine may be 500,000 pounds, right? I'm just saying because it's just the judge would award, 20,000 is the least. So if they catch in all of these breaches, they can set a high figure in terms of the fine. So health and safety is serious business in England. America too. It's only Trinidad and Guyana just make joke. It's only Trinidad and Guyana where somebody could fall and die or get electrocuted and die, as in the case of the welder in Guyana. And the company would just sort of show up to the funeral and maybe sponsor something, right? And that's okay with everybody. Everybody's happy. They say, look, X, Y, and Z showed up. But around the world, it's not like that. If there's a death in a company, it's referred to as, it's like a manslaughter. It's like murder then, right? But we don't have that crime in Trinidad, right? Like corporate manslaughter, we don't have that. That is not a crime in Trinidad. It's not a category of crime in Guyana either. Corporate manslaughter. We have manslaughter, but we don't have corporate manslaughter. Think you understand the difference a bit here? All right. All of that was to tell you that offenses can be serious or less serious then, right? The serious offenses carry the higher fine. If you want, you could take a note of that. And the less serious offenses carry a high fine too, because it's about 200,000 TT or 1,206, about 6 million Guyanese dollars, right? So even the lesser one carries a hefty fine in the UK. Taking that off, anybody write it? Oh, let me read out. I have some stuff to read still, right? So the burden of proof is on the employer to get a lawyer and defend yourself. And statute law does not involve compensation. This is the government charging you here. This is the arch inspector charging your company. So there's no compensation involved here. Compensation is common law. And I said today is not common law. You think you understand this? This is like a police giving you a ticket. There's no compensation there. You have to pay the ticket. Or you go to court and you fight the ticket, right? That type of law where the state, right? A police officer works for the state, right? He's paid by the state. So you can say the police that enforces the law of the land. Of course, they do enforce health and safety law. We have OSHA for that, right? But likewise, the OSHA inspectors are from the state. They work for the government, right? So they are paid by the state, and there's no compensation here. If an OSHA inspector give you a fine, you either have to fulfill the requirements to avoid the fine. Sometimes they give you 21 days to sort of come up to speed. And if you don't come up to speed in the 21 days, well, then you have to pay the fine, right? So statute law does not involve compensation for any injured party. It's like a policeman giving you a ticket, trying to put it in your head. It's like an OSHA inspector giving a company a ticket, right? Or a notice, as they call it. There is no compensation involved. There is just a straightforward charge, and you have to pay that. You have to pay that charge. Tell me what you think. This one is finished, but we are finished yet. So the amount of today class, not all classes are like that. Like if I knew there was no exam question here, I would have just read on. But there's a skill you have to learn with something here. Everybody okay with what statute law is? The law of the land. And in Trinidad and Tobago, the HSG Act is the law of the land. In Guyana, the HSG Act is the law of the land. And in the UK, the HSW Act is the law of the land. Right? What say you? Take it off, or anybody still writing? Anybody writing anything down? Are we all okay? We have Tiffany, Nigel, Al Jerome, Shana Mohammed, Savita, across there in Guyana, Dareem, right? Catherine, Nikita. Are you all okay? Is anyone writing anything down again? No? Okay. Thanks for the comments. I guess you'll put it in there, right? Okay. Well, let's move on. I do hope you all have some writing paper because we get it into the writing thing now. Well, even I mean this was sort of writing too. All right. So the next thing here, let's keep looking at this slide. Again, the same thing is on the book, right? So what I'll do here, this is not exam. This is like a social studies thing, right? I'll just kind of mention it briefly. So as we talk about the law of the land, it have to go through parliament. Normally, anything that is going through to become a law starts off as a consultation document. A bill is produced, the bill is read about 3 times in Parliament, but it's 3 different times over a period of 40 days. So it's when they say 3 times, it's not 3 times the same day, right? And at every stage of the reading, the second stage is like if remember Parliament in Trinidad, Parliament in Guyana, Parliament in England is the same thing. Remember, we follow the British. So there's an opposition and there's a ruling party, right? So by the second reading, if the opposition doesn't agree to something on the bill, they could ask for a committee to be set up, like a privileges committee. These things may sound familiar, those of us who have been listening to the news and stuff. And that may take another 40 days again, right? However, at the end of it, in Trinidad here, we could relate this to property tax. In Guyana, maybe you could relate it to something with respect to tourism or the amount of companies coming into your country anyway, right? But of course, in health and safety, we could relate this to probably like a law. Let's say the company that you are in is like a construction company, and the government wants to come up with a law for construction to regulate the construction industry. That's actually a good idea, by the way. I'll say it again, right? What if the government in your country wants to regulate construction? So what I'm saying is going to have to start off with consulting. They're going to have to go to different town meetings, the long and short of it, right? Then a document is produced and that is read in Parliament. That is called the bill. The opposition may not like everything in the construction regulation, right? So it may be referred to a committee that will make adjustments to it. When everybody agree, everything should be okay. And then the bill is read a third time. By the third reading, they say no amendments can be made. It's just to vote on it. And if it gets the majority from the leading party and the opposition, it will be sent to the head of state for the head of state to sign, right? So in Trinidad and Tobago, that would be the president. And in Guyana, that would also be the president. And in England, it would now be the king. So I have the queen here, but of course, we all know the queen passed away, right? So by the third reading, when it gets approved in Parliament, yes, the king does actually work, right? And the British work quite a lot as well, right? But once it gets through that stage, then the king will sign it, and in that case, it becomes the law in Trinidad and Tobago. Here, the president will sign it; it becomes the law. So then you'll have a law for construction, or then you'll have a law for a law for construction in Guyana or Trinidad. England already have a law for construction, right? So then if you understand that this is not an exam, though, this is like a kind of reflection back at social studies, which I didn't really want to spend much time on, right? However, here now, let me read out this one. So regulations are made by the Secretary of State. If you want to take a note, a Secretary of State is a minister. Regulations can be made by the Secretary of State. In England and in Trinidad and in Guyana too, we can replace that phrase by the phrase minister, right? The health and safety executive, if you all see these letters here, HSE, this stands for the health and safety executive. You could make a note of that. It's not HSE officer. Wherever you see the letters, there's actually all of that is on the slide in it. We just haven't reached it yet. If you go down, if you read the slide, right, you'll see all of that here. The health and safety executive. Wherever you see, and even the one in corporate manslaughter, all of that is on the same, all the fines and everything I call for you all is on the same slide. Look at right here. And you all have had it for about 3 weeks now. Actually, you all should probably read it out a bit, right? I'm the corporate manslaughter there. Right? So it is an act. It is like corporate manslaughter is the law of the land in England, but it's not the law of the land in Trinidad, nor is it the law of the land in Guyana, right? Right. So I was telling you the HSE, wherever you see those letters, it stands for the Health and Safety Executive. And that's a government entity in England. That's like OSHA then. I don't know if you want to take that down. Maybe you can take a note of that, right? where we see HSE in this, and I mean, this is really not today's class anyway, but because we're coming across the phrase, I want to say it one time. So where we see the letters HSE in this course, the HSE is the government OSHA, but they don't say OSHA in England, right? So if you look at the slide I have here, the Health and Safety Executive, HSE headquarters, Rose Court 2, Southwark Bridge, London, right? And so this is where those inspectors are located, and the HSE inspectors, right? But the government building does more than house inspectors then, right? If we go back to the slide, one of the things they do is that they actually make regulations, right? Or they assist the ministers in making regulation. I can explain that, but we may have to go back to the slide. If you want, I could do it here. So let's say Terrence, but for those of us in Trinidad, they probably would understand this, but so let's say Terrence D.L. Singh, which is the Minister of Health. So the Minister of Health, I'll put here MOH, the Minister of Health. Let's say he wants to make a regulation, which he did during COVID-19, right? So that's the minister, right? So he wants to make a regulation, but like one man cannot do it then. So that's what he wants to do. But seeing that it have a government building for health and safety and there's a government office here, which is the HSE, what the Minister of Health to do is sort of liaise with the HSE. And in Trinidad and in Guyana, we would have said the minister would have liaised with OSHA. Or in Guyana, you say the minister would liaise with the Ministry of Labor. I'll put that one down here, right? Ministry of Labor, right? Because that's the government entity for safety there. In the UK, it's the HSE. In Trinidad, it's OSHA. And in Guyana, it's the Ministry of Labor. So if you want to make a regulation, as the Minister of Health did for COVID-19, we all remember things like the curfew, not going anywhere on holidays, the closure of beaches, right? So the minister would have had the idea, but he himself then, like to write it up then, he would have just gone to the department in the government building because that is the OSHA then, right? So he would say, you know, I wanna make a regulation for beaches, right? Or I want to make a regulation for taxis carrying just 50% of passengers during COVID-19, right? So you understand, if we go back to this slide, you see what I was talking about, that regulations, if you look at this one, you could write the word regulation. Regulations are made, if we go back here, you'll see regulations are made by the Secretary of State, but we say the Secretary of State is a minister, right? So the HSE must consult with all interested parties. The HSE is the government arm then for health and safety. So the Secretary of State can make these regulations on his or her own, but why? Why do it on your own? Because would you stay up in the night and type out, you know, like what you want for the regulation, or would you just give it to the department in OSHA to write it for you? So that's what you see here. The minister can make them on his or her own initiative, but it's a good idea to consult with the government entity for health and safety, right? Regulations must be laid before Parliament, and remember, regulations are the law, right? So one of the things I wanted to get here is that in the UK, there are many laws for health and safety. So I put 6 here. You can take a note of that. I'll explain it again, but if you write it down, there's really no other way to say it, right? In the UK, there are many regulations then made by the ministers, right? The ministers actually work then, if I want to put it like that. The ministers make a lot of regulations in the UK, right? You probably want to listen a bit on it because I'll try to tell you how much. So how much regulations, how much laws they have for health and safety then? Right? They have one main law. Could I take up the left-hand side? I'm going to take up that, right? So they have one main law, which is the HSW Act, right? But the slide we read just now, remember today class is on statute law, right? So you have one main law, which is the HSW Act, 1974. And what we just read there now is that the ministers could actually make regulations, and regulations are also laws. I also said that the ministers across here are not lazy, they make them. So the ministers make lots of regulations, and that's what they're looking at there on the slide now, right? I put 6 on this slide. I put 6 on this slide. I can read them on for you. I just write out the word regulations. And regulations are laws. Remember COVID-19, if they catch you in the beaches, what would have happened? If they caught you without a mask, what would have happened? But they would have, like they would have said the health regulation, right? Or you're in breach of the regulation for the mask, right? So regulations, so please note, if you want to write it down, this is law. You could write here law, but I wouldn't write it because it's kind of understood. Regulations are the law. If you break the law, you get a fine. Please make a note again. I just put in back a stick figure here that regulations could be made by a minister. Yes, just in the region here, ministers don't do anything. But the ministers in the UK do a lot. So the ministers do make a lot of regulations, right? Let's read out this 6 here. And then I'll give you an idea of how much regulations they have, right? So the 6 I have here, but we saw this at the end of the slide when we looked at the end of the law just now. We did that today. There's a law called the Management of Health and Safety at Work Regulation 1999. Look at this one. It sounds like this one, right? This is the Health and Safety at Work Act. And this is the Management of Health and Safety at Work, but regulation, because it's made by a minister, right? We have the Provision and Use of Work Equipment Regulation. This is pronounced PUA for short, right? We use this in the region. Everybody uses this. Guyana uses this law too, right? Even though it's not law in Guyana, Trinidad uses it too, right? We have Workplace Health, Safety and Welfare Regulations, 1992. We have Display Screen Equipment Regulation, 1992. Manual Handling Operation Regulation that everybody uses worldwide, 1992. But they're from the UK. PPE, do you know that Trinidad and Guyana doesn't have a law for PPE, but we use the UK laws, right? Personal Protective Equipment Regulation, 1992. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on this slide, right? But here the thing, because I was telling you all that it have more regulation. So the question is, how much regulation does it have? And listen to the answer, right? The answer is as much hazards as it have. What they did in the UK, right? They created a regulation for every hazard. So every hazard have a regulation. So that's why even like Trinidad and Guyana, like we don't have a law for manual handling, right? But manual handling is a hazard. So what we will do, we will just look at the UK regulation then for manual handling. Every hazard have a regulation. So really, this figure is unknown. And then some hazards have more than one regulation. Like some hazards have 3 regulations. So it's really unknown how much regulations it have in the world there. Right? If you want me to give you one example, I'll give you one that is not here. I'll give you a 7th example. So a 7th example, because remember we have 6 there, right? Is chemicals. Chemicals have a whole bunch of regulation. But if anybody working in the companies that you may be familiar with one of them, I'm going to put the most popular one here, right? But you better write it down for me because you see the Zoom market is be a bit troublesome. I could write the acronym here and then I could call it out for you, right? So the acronym for chemicals, one of them is COSH, right? The control, when I write it down, C is for control. So control of substances, hazardous to health regulation. COSH is about 2006, right? The latest amendment is about 2006, right? So the moral of the story is that, but the moral is still on the slide. The moral of the story, I can tell you today going was slow because it's so compact now, right? And we haven't reached we really reached what we have to do yet. So the moral of the story is that this course have more than one law. Trinidad may have one law, Guyana may have one law, but there's more than one law for health and safety. There is like the main law, which is the one up here, right? The HSW Act. But the funny thing is that ministers in the UK then can make laws, and they have made a lot of laws. together with the HSE, right? So they consult with the government arm, which is called the Health and Safety Executive. We had a look at that picture just now. And they write further laws then. Those further laws could be seen like as a daughter regulation or a daughter law, right? And what they are very specific. Because if you read them, you'll see what just one. This one is for health, safety, and welfare. This one is a display screen equipment. This one is a manual handling. So it seemed to be that every hazard have regulations. I wouldn't say regulation because I tell you, chemical have about 4, right? So see if you understand that. Now you may wonder where we are going with this, but I have to tie in 2 more things and I'll tell you what we have to do. I could try to tie in 1 more on the same slide, well, without erasing it, but we have to move the slide, right? So let's get to the other slide, right? So there's also something here called a approved code of practices. And what this is saying, the approved code of practices could supplement an act or regulation. It tells you what the law wants. It enables the legislation to be kept up to date, as updating an ACOP is much quicker than an act or regulation. It is regarded as an extension of the law. The HSE, again, the same government office, has the power to approve the ACOPs. Before approval, it may be best to consult with the Secretary of State, which is a minister, right? Let me see if there's another one. Failure to comply with the ACOP itself is not an offense in itself. Failure to observe an ACOP can be used as evidence in criminal proceedings to say that you're not following the law. If an employer ignores an ACOP, it can be used as evidence to demonstrate that he broke, the word contravene mean break, right? A statutory provision. So by breaking an ACOP, you break the law. That's what they're trying to say, right? If an employer ignores an ACOP, it can be used as evidence to demonstrate that they broke a statutory provision. Statutory provision is the HSW Act and the regulations, right? So what we need to add here, we need to add that there's something else, right? But yeah, there's something else. So I'll put here, you see, this is, if you want, I could number them. This is number 1. In terms of statute law, there's the main HSW Act. We saw there is regulations, which is made by the minister together with the HSE. We now see, and there's a third one, there's a third statutory instrument. All of this is under statute law, something called an ACOP, right? Approved Code of Practices, and ACOPs for short, if you want to just write this down. And what they say is that this does seem to reflect the law as well, because it could be used as evidence. If you breach the ACOP, it comes as if you're breaking the law. So there's a third statutory instrument called an ACOP, right? I'll explain. I have 1 more slide to read here. I'll try to fit as much as I could fit here. Now, the question is asked again here, how many ACOPs does it have? And if you read this thing carefully, they say the ACOP, right? Which was in the other slide. I have to go back, I guess, right? The ACOP supplements the Act and regulation. So could I ask how many ACOPs it have? How many ACOPs you think it have? If an ACOP is meant to supplement a regulation, then the answer I'm looking for, does it have a lot of ACOPs or does it have a little bit of ACOPs? How many ACOPs you think it have? A lot of them or just a few of them?
A lot.
A lot. Because what this is kind of saying is that if we just said, right, it have a lot of regulations because every hazard have a regulation. So could we count how much hazards it have? No, a hazard is whatever have the potential to cause harm. So as much as it have hazards, it have regulations. But it just said now an ACOP will supplement the regulations, so then every regulation have an ACOP. So I should probably tell you what it is, right, and what it looks like. I have one right here. I just have to reach it. I found it sometime in the week here. So I'll reach it and I'll show you. I haven't seen it in years. I was doing some spring cleaning and I saw this. So an ACOP is a book. That's what it is. It's like a book. Watch this one. This is an ACOP. Hand-arm vibration. I brought this back from the UK about 11 years ago, right? This is one that's supplementing a law for vibration. The control of vibration at work regulation. Acops, and watch it, it's produced by, this is a real one, you know, this is produced by who? Who's the authors of it? Remember we said it's the government entity, the HSC, right? So what is an ACOP? An ACOP is a book. The price, watch it, the price of the book there. An ACOP is a book, right? But what it's doing then, it's supplementing the law. I'll explain it to you a little bit more. For example, let's say you did really want to find out about hand-arm vibration, and the regulation for that in the UK is the Controller Vibration Network Regulation 2005. Now, you might not really want to go and download the law because the law may be kind of tedious to read then. Remember, the law is written in a certain way, section 2.1, 2.2.1.1.1, all kind of craziness, right? But if you could get a nice book on it, then the book may be more friendly to read. The book may be, you know, have some nice pictures in it. I'm trying to show you some, right? The books may have some nice pictures in it. So you could understand how a wood, you know, a hand could be exposed to vibration, right? How your hand could be exposed to vibration, right? Now, the law mightn't tell you all of that. But what they did in the UK, what they're trying to tell you is that the HSE, this is the effects of vibration to your hand. You can see that, right? Like different digits of your hand could get numb. They refer to it as vibration white finger. Now, the law may be saying that, but the book is going to say it with pictures, right? So what they did in the UK, and this is for the world, because look, I have it in Trinidad, right? Like Trinidadians then and Guyanese don't have to go and write another book on understanding the hand-arm vibration regulation. The fact that the thing is good, you could use it in Trinidad. We use this here. We use Kosh in Trinidad. We use Kosh in Guyana as well, right? So you think you understand. So what would happen here? See if you understand that there's a duty on the employer in the HSW Act, right? Then there could be like a specific hazard then. Let's say vibration. But there's going to be a law for that, right? The UK, the minister together with the HSE wrote a law. What's the law right there? The law is there. Control of Vibration Network Regulation 2005, right? The minister with the government office then wrote a law for it. But then they know too as well, like not everybody would want to go and download the law then, if it's the one for vibration or manual handling. So what they did, they wrote some books to help you understand it, right? I want to say you, this is really for the employer, but you could understand it too. Look at this, you think a law would have a picture on it? A law wouldn't have a picture. So what they did, they wrote a book, and those books are called Acops. Let me if you understand that. So it's much friendlier to read a book on the hazard then than to read, you know, the law on the hazard itself, right? And these books are free. In fact, what you have to do today, we have to see how to find them. I'm just trying to finish up the last one, right? Now, the books have a serial code. I want you to write this down. All Acops begin with the letter L. As in lullaby, it mightn't look like that there. All Acops begin with the letter L, and every Acop would have a different L number. We'll have to find the L number in a bit as well too. What's something, eh? HSC what? If you could see what HSC what? HSC books. You see that? So there's a regulation for everything, and there's a book for everything, right? So all books though, because okay, like the next book, could you all see it? Could you all see it? L what? L what?
140.
140. So now if there's another hazard, which there will be, life is like that, right? If there's another hazard, let's say for noise, there will be a book for noise too, but it would not be L140, it'll be L something else. Every book have a serial number then. Think you understand that? But Nibosh wanted to find these numbers. Nice numbers, as they would say, right? But we have to find the numbers on them in a bit, right? But we are reached so far yet. Could I just do the last one? If you wonder what do I mean by the last one, there's another one on this slide, right? There's another thing on this slide. Another thing on this slide, if you look through, there's something called guidances. Let's read out this one. Guidance note contain practical advice from the HSC again, usually in the form of books denoted by the letters HSG. The guidance itself, however, have no legal standing, but contains advice which mirrors best practice at the time of publication. Following guidance alone, it does not guarantee safety at work and would not prevent an issue of an enforcement notice. And here I have an example of one that I did, a regulation, an ACOP, and a guidance, right? Anyway, we can probably come back here. Look, there's a picture of another book. For example, I'm using the one for vibration, but that one there is one for thermal comfort in the workplace. That's like another book. Every hazard have a regulation. Every regulation have a ACOP. What is an ACOP? An ACOP is a book. So every hazard have a book, right? All right, so what we just read there, let me just try to get back into this one. Guidance contain practical advice from the HSE, usually in the form of books denoted by the letters HSG. So the question is, well, what is this? Well, if you read it carefully again, what do you see? This is another book. They didn't produce one book, they produced two books to help you understand the hazard. I'll say that again. The government in England, they didn't just make one book, they make two, right? So one of them, they are called Acops, and there's another type of book, but the other type of book is a thinner one. I don't think I have any on my table here. Sorry, these letters should have been close by. I wasn't looking what I was doing, right? So HSG. So these books have another code, HSG, and they'll have another number as well. There'll be a number here. This book is more like a pamphlet. I mean, this one is about maybe 5-6 pages, right? It's like if you didn't want this thick book, it still have you ever seen like a brochure? Have you ever seen like a brochure you go on, maybe by a doctor's office, or maybe when you're in a hotel somewhere, like you have seen, they have like a little brochure on duty of the employer, understanding your responsibilities, and it's just like 4 pages long. It's just like the brochure. Have you ever seen something, like knowing your rights as an employee, and it's just like maybe 4 pages long, or maybe just the front, the back, and the other side? Well, that's like a guidance, right? But it is a book. It is a book as well. It's like a thinner book, right? In fact, like the thinness of it doesn't really make it a guidance. In fact, what makes it different is just by another author, and the color code on it may be different, but guidances are also books as well, right? Guidances are also books as well, produced by the HSE. So you have a choice then in terms of looking at a book. So you have no excuse to say, okay, well, I did not know it had a law for noise, or I did not know it had a law for asbestos. The UK have it, or I didn't know it have a law for forklifts. It have, right? And we follow that because that's best practice to the world anyway, right? It have, and it's just for us to find it, right? So tell me if you understand what we're looking at on this slide. What you looked at on this slide is that, I'll repeat it for the third time, employers have a duty under the HSW Act, right, to protect their employees from hazards. Then it seemed to be like there's a regulation for every hazard. So there are lots of regulations out there. Regulations are the law. They are made by the minister and the UK, OSHA, which is called the HSE, right? Regulations are a lot. And because of that, people may not really want to read them. They may be very bulky. So what the HSE did, the same place, I'm going to show you back the picture, right? What they did, they wrote some books to help you, instead of, having to understand, like read a whole law, you can just read a book or a pamphlet, right? If you get the one with the L number, the L and a number, that's called an ACOP, because ACOP is denoted by the letter L. If you get a book with the letters HSG, that is called a health and safety guidance, right? Tell me if you understand that. I may have one thing to add there before we try to find some of them. I just kind of out of space though, so I'm trying to figure where to put the next thing, right? And I want all of it to be on the same page. So, okay, sometimes when you do this search, I'll show you what I talk about when I remember telling you, you have to find the books. You had to find the ACOP, you had to find the guidance, you had to find the regulation. Yes, you had to find it. That's what I tell you at the start of the hour, right? Today is something to do and not just to read. So sometimes when you're looking for the books in them, you may find another type of book with the letters INDG, INDG. That is acceptable as well. That is totally acceptable as well. INDG. It stands for industrial guidance, if you want to write that down, right? So NIBOSH would accept when they say find a book, if you find the L book, that is acceptable. If you find the HSG and the number there could be 267, whatever, that is acceptable. And if you find the INDG books together with their number, INDG 353, whatever, I'm just making up a random number, that is also acceptable. So in terms of the books, any one of these would be acceptable. In terms of the supplementary document, and remember ACOPs and stuff are supplementary, any one of those are satisfactory. All right, now we have to try to find one or two of them. So let's try to do that. I just may need to do something on this side, right? So let me just try to set up another screen here, if I can do it for you all on the live, right? So what you can do, I don't know how well this would work, right? Let me just try something. And normally when I try this, it slows down the system, right? But could you tell me if you are seeing Google, like a open page and Google is on it?
Yeah.
Okay, good, right? Yeah, okay, good. So what do you want to find? So the HSE have a website. And for a safety person, the website is like a secret weapon. All those things they're asking us to find is on that website. So I don't know if you all could, if you have your phone, you could follow me with this. I'm going to put here. Well, I have done it before. So you see, the first thing I put is HSE website comes up, right? But if you just pretend to be a new student, health and safety executive homepage, right? So if you do that, I'm going to press enter. But I wanted to tell me when it comes up because I think I have to share it on the Zoom. I don't think it shares with you. Did you all see it change on your page as well, on your view, or is it still stuck on the Google page?
No, it changed and then now it's blank.
Oh, very good, good. Well, but that means you're seeing it. You can let me know if you're seeing health and safety executive coming up.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, very good. Okay, so what I wanted to do, if you have a phone and you're not using it for class, I wanted to try to get that same thing as well. I wanted to go on Google and I wanted to put in the HSE website, Health and Safety Executive website. It may tell you to accept all cookies. So I think I've already done that. So you have to accept. And you are going to see like a search, like a magnifying glass here. So if you see that, I want you to click on that. You're going to see it opens up into like a search bar like Google. Tell me if you're okay with that. And what I want to do now, I would have to kind of tell you what I want to do because if I mark on the screen, it's going to slow me down a bit, right? So what I want you to do, what I want the class to do, I want us to think of a hazard. And tell me what hazard, well, just tell me what hazard you're thinking about. Anybody that shout out a hazard?
Drop objects.
Okay, somebody has another one?
Hazard.
Slip hazards, okay, another one?
Drop objects.
That was the same as the first one.
Working at heights.
Working at heights. Okay, could I go with that one? I was waiting. No, the reason why I was waiting to hear that one. Again, I don't know if you'll write down the main things I say, right? NIBOSH actually have a list of hazards, right? So on the list, work at height is on the list. So that's why I took that one, right? Drop objects is not on the list for NIBOSH. Slips is on the list, but they call it something else. They call it slips and trips. We could go with slips and trips, but when I heard working at height is a good one, right? So we'll go with that one. Now, when I say good, the others are not, it's not that they're not good, it's just that NIBOSH have a list of hazards they wanted to use. So you should write that down. For this course, NIBOSH have a list. I would eventually give it a list. The list is not today's class then. Today we're talking about, acts and regulations and stuff, right? But there's a list of hazards that they will give you when we reach that session on like hazards and getting hazards and stuff, right? Confined space is actually good as well. Nigel Jacob, that's a good one. That's on the list as well. But I just want one for now, right? So what I want to do, I wanted to put, I wanted to write down that hazard, but I wanted to write it down as hazard, H-A-Z, if you want, you could write just 3 letters, H-A-Z, and you put next to that, work at height. I could show you what I wanted to do, but I'm going to have to erase it there because remember, when you write on the screen, it freezes the screen, right? So I wanted to put down the word hazard. Well, what should I want to do? I wanted to put the word hazard, and we said here, work at height. So you could write this down for me, work at height. I want to try to show you what we're trying to get. Or working at height, right? But we can put work at height. Write this down. This is something you have to do for your NIBOSH project, which is why I'll tell you today's class is not about reading then, because some classes are like the one we study one on common law, fine, we could just read. Because there are no questions, but you said you wanted to find these hazards here, right? So work at height, right? What did I put? I put work at health. Jesus. Hopefully nobody, that's when you're talking, you write the same, right? Height is H-E-I-G-H-T, right? So work at height. All right. So what I wanted to do, we're trying to mimic what I had in the screen before. What I want us to do, I want us to find, we have to find the regulation for work at height. And we're going to have to write it down here. I'm going to have to take this off. I say you all could write on this format. We also want to find the Acops for work at height. We want to find the L number and the name of that book. So we want to find the L number, and I want to put the name of the book down as well. And then we also want to find the guidance, the HSG or the INDG document. And we want to get the number for that. And we want to write down the name of that booklet or pamphlet again. So that's what we're trying to do here. 1, 2, 3, 4. You see, the reason is that there's a space for it. On your risk assessment project sheet, you have to get, well, 10 hazards, which when you reach that stage, I'll give you the hazards, right? But of the 10 of them, you have to take out like the first, second, and third, right? And for each one, you have to get the regulation. You have to get one of these books. No, you don't have to get the 3 books, right? Or the 2 books. 1 book is good enough. But because today class had the Acop and the guidance, we're going to practice finding the book. But for the risk assessment project, right, which is called NG2, which is part of your assessment, any book will do. If you find the Acop, that's good enough. If you find the guidance, that's also good enough. But because today theory was on all 4, we're going to try to find all 4. So when you finish writing that down, I may have to take it off and I may have to clean the screen. Let me see if this allows me to move. So on the HSC website, yeah, go ahead.
What's the fourth one you have to find? The HS.
No, the
The fourth
regulation
one.
is the first thing to find.
Yeah, I had
So-
regulation. I had the Acops, which is the L number, and the number, the last one on the list.
HSG, Health and
H-
Safety Guidance.
G? Okay.
Yeah, G. If you want, just go back to the PowerPoint now. You see, that's the last thing that we were doing, the guidance, health and safety guidance. Right? All right, so the way to find it is on the HSE website, you come in the search bar, and what you can put here, if we're looking for the regulation, we could just put regulations. So can you all see what I'm typing? Yeah? Regulation for work at height. And you can press enter and see if you get it. Don't give up if you don't get it the first time. Also tell me if you see it changing as well. Did you all see it change on my side as well? Right.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be the first one. Or I know it by heart, but I want you to see it. Anybody can see if they see it? Work at height regulation. right? And we want to write it down, right? It will be okay, so what you could do, those who put in things in the chat, you can just unmute your mic because remember it's a different window I have to open to check your chat, right? So let me click the first one and see if I get the regulation. Are you all seeing it on my screen? It says the law. What's the name of the law? If you've seen it, could you say it? Because it's exactly underlined on the screen. What's the name of
The
the
work,
law?
the Work at Heights Regulation 2005.
Very good, right? So that's what you want to write down here, the Work at Height Regulation 2005. Now, please remember today's class is very important, but again, it's going on YouTube. There are many videos I have on this on YouTube already. Wherever you see a session labeled Acops guidance, it's a very important session, right? So could you all write that down here? I would just write the acronym Work at Height Regulation 2005, but please write down the entire thing. And remember what I said again, I'm saying it for the second time. I may say it for a fourth time, that on your project, when you get the 10 hazards, you have to take out 3 of them. And the ones you take out, you have to find the law for them. So if you put back work at height, you can take back the same law. Work at height, it doesn't change. It doesn't change. Now again, don't give up when you're doing this. I'll tell you what I mean by don't give up, because I'm giving you something for assignment this week. For assignment, you'll have to find 3 of this for me. You'll have to find 3 hazards of your choosing, the regulations for them, the ACOP for them, and the guidances for them. You could type it up as a Word document and send it back to me. It's good practice for that project I'm talking about.
Excuse sir.
Uh-huh.
So here it is, right? When we write in the regulation, we write in the name of the regulation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just the name we want, right? We don't really want nothing it says. At least not for now. When we get to that stage of your project, this is still your first month of courses, you'll have to quote something from the law. But you don't need that now, because this is just, I mean, you're learning one thing at a time anyway. You can't learn everything one time. But when you get to the project stage and you find the regulation, you'll have to put a quote from the regulation. Like, what does the work at height regulation say? Right? For example, what does it say? Employers, okay, what does it say? But we don't need that information now, right? So I don't need that for the assignment now, right? But you'll need it when we get to that stage of the project, right? For now, it's just to introduce, like today's concept is that statutory law is big. It's like it have more than one law now. Like Trinidad just have the HSG, Guyana just have the HSG, but not England. They have 4. But not just 4. I mean, like every hazard have a regulation, and then every regulation have an ACOP, and every ACOP have a guidance, right? Okay, let's try another one. Let's try to find the ACOP. So to find the ACOP, you're gonna click the search bar again. No, this is already the UK site. So you can actually put in the letters ACOPS, right? You can put ACOPS. If you're not getting it by putting ACOPS, you may want to type out the full meaning. But they put here ACOPS for work at height. And you can see if you can get it. Well, how we know we get it?
You
Is
see the
that-
L?
Yeah, we see the L, right? So ACOPS for work at height. Did I spell something wrong? Let me see what happened. Okay, so the first thing that, no, again, it doesn't have to be the first one. It's just sort of, can you all see it? Search HSC website. Yeah, but let me click the first one and see if I can see L. I can look through too and see if it's spot the L. Like if you spot the L, it means that's it. Look, this one here, this would work for the guidance. So I don't know if you want to follow this one time, because the next thing to do is to follow the guidance, but it's already 10:30 now. So I don't know if you want to click this one. But look, this one said ACOP here, so maybe these 2 can be, but this is something for asbestos. So, let's click the first one, right? The first one, I didn't click the first one, and see if we can get the, okay, so this one says, work at height, a brief guide, INDG 401. So this would work for this one, so we could fill it out. So we don't need to waste it, right? We could fill it out. So that would work for here. The name of this, remember I said the guidances could be INDG as well, which stands for Industrial Guidances. So you can fill out this one, INDG.
Acops.
Yeah. 401. Did anybody find an ACOP? If you found it, you could tell me because I'm out of time. And you want to put the name of the
L24.
Oh, you got L24. Very good. Okay, I'll check it back just now. Okay. So you put the name of the book here, working at height. So my search engine probably crappy then, right? So working at height. Just put in work at height, right? But it's supposed to be work. You put back the name of the book, right? At height. And folks, I wanted to click it and show you that it was a book. Now remember, this is not, if you really understand today class, this is not just for examiner. I don't know why I keep putting health, right? Somebody brain not working properly today, right? So this is HEIGHT. I'm thinking height and I write in health all the time, right? But I wanted to click it, right? So let me click it. I want to show you as a book. I was telling you all. So what this really means is that when you're in safety then, right? Anything you want to find out is at the touch of your fingertips. If you know this HSC website. If somebody asks you something on work at height and you didn't know, you could just go on the HSC website and you could actually click one of the book. You could put guidance for work at height or Acops or work at height, right? I'm waiting for it to come up here. I wanted to show you that it is a book. It's actually free now. Well, the soft copy is free. The hard copy is money, right? Are you all seeing the book in the background here? If not, I'll bring it up a bit. The background I have is working at height, a brief guide. Are you all seeing that? Okay, I have just some people
Yes,
on my
sir.
screen. Okay, good.
Yes, sir. We
So,
see.
yeah, if just give me a minute. If we zoom in on it, what do you see? What do I say here? This is a web-friendly version of leaflet. Remember, I tell you the guidance, this is a leaflet. Remember we said that this one down here was like a leaflet, right? INDG 401, and it's free to download. Look at here, we download it here. This is it. So as a safety person, not just as a student, if you want to find something out, the information is at your fingertips, right? I think I need to get some water, right? But if somebody said they got the ACOP already, and I'm out of time, what we can do, we could do it back to front end, meaning I could just plug in here L24 and see if that really is the ACOP for work at height. Right? So I'm kind of piggybacking on the end because the other thing to do would have been to search through now. But then, this is just an exercise. This is a live class, right? But you see how to do it. You can actually put in ACOPs or work at height. But if somebody got it, let's try to do it back to front. Put in L24 and see if it really is, right? Something for work at height. So this one says workplace health, safety and welfare, workplace. This could work, right? This could work. I could probably get a better one. Remember, they have more than one books, but we'll use this one for now because I'm out of time. Our class time is finished, right? So we'll put here L24 and then you write down all of that there as the name for the book anyway. And then this will be one completed one, right? So here what you see the hazard. Today's class is all hazards have a law. Let me get some water. Yeah, that is because you'll have me talking since about 9 o'clock. There's an hour and a half non-stop talking. Yeah, so like all hazards have a law. So you saw that here. You'll pick a hazard, work at height. We got a law for it. Then once it have a law, it have a book because not everybody wants to read a law. Some people just want to read the book, right? And then some people don't want to read the tick book. They want to read the pamphlet book. So the government is smart with that in the UK. They know all employers don't have a lot of time. So they produce these books and pamphlets. And, look, this one here, work at height. Look, the book here, L24, second edition, published 2013. They are all free. Look at right here. This is, in fact, the same booklet, right? So, good stuff, right? Really good stuff. What we tell a lot of students is that the HSC site is like a secret weapon. Even when you finish the course, this thing is free for you all. The homepage, I'm gonna go back to the homepage. The HSC website is free for you all. It's free for all safety practitioners. I use it. Everybody use it. Nobody knows everything, right? Everybody does use this. Somebody called me to ask me something. I would just double check it. Here you go and search for something for lighting. Anybody could shout another hazard, but I try to take the rule. Anybody shout a hazard, I'll try to type it in and see if we could find another one as well.
What about fire?
Yeah, fire is very good, right? So you just put your fire, you'll get a couple of laws for fire in the UK. Anyone you get will be correct, yeah? That's the other thing. They don't really give it wrong, right? Regulation for fire. You're supposed to come up to something called the Regulatory Reform Fire Safety Orders 2007. It may have others, but that's the more popular one. Right? Regulation for fire. I'm seeing here, look, construction is a law. So fire safety regulations, DISA regulation. I told you there was more than one, right? There's more than one. The Health and Safety Regulation 1996. Once you get one, you're good to go for exam. DISA is a real popular one. That stands for the Dangerous Substance and Explosive Atmosphere Regulation. DISA is a real nice one. When I say nice, everybody know DISA then. Like if you're doing NEBOSH, everybody know about DISA. Everybody knows about the one I mentioned. This one, the Health and Safety Regulation 1996. This one seems to be a nice one. The one I saw him, the Fire Safety Regulations, right? And you just click on it and you get it. And make the rules, so it's not hard to do. But I hope you get the learning. The learning was it's not just for exam, but it's really for you. Somebody asks you, all of these, this is another law, you know. What you want I call him? I shouted one just now, kind of long one. The Regulatory Reform Fire Safety Orders 2005. That's the one I cited. But this one here, CDM is also one. That's the Construction Design and Management Regulation 2015. The Construction Design and Management. You don't have to know it because it's an open book exam. You just have to know how to find it. You don't have to know it, right? You just have to know how to find it. All right, let me stop the recording. Well, I could stop now, I guess. Where's that record button? And we can just get it ruled, right? So